Joining us now is newsroom editor at Unheard, James Billow. James, thank you for joining us. Donald Trump has declared that the pardons Joe Biden granted to the January 6th House Select Committee are void. He posted on Truth Social saying that the pardons that Sleepy Joe Biden gave to the Unselect Committee of Political Thugs and many others are hereby declared void, vacant, and of no further force or effect because of the fact that they were done by auto pen. In other words, Joe Biden did not sign them, but more importantly, he did not know anything about them. The necessary pardoning documents were not explained to or approved by Biden. He knew nothing about them, and the people that did may have committed a crime. This is what Caroline Levitt has had to say on the pardons.
Did the president even know about these pardons? Was his legal signature used without his consent or knowledge? There are Biden officials from the previous White House who raised those questions and wondered if the president was even consulted about his legally binding signature being signed onto documents, because certainly that would propose perhaps criminal or illegal behavior if staff members were signing the president of the United States autograph without his consent.
James, what's your reaction to all this? Obviously, pretty huge claims from Donald Trump, but there are concerns that many Americans share that Joe Biden was not all there. Did he even know what he was signing?
Yeah, I think that's exactly the right point. It's speaking to a larger truth in that this was a man who really was not really in the hot during those last 2 years in office. I think what Trump's doing here is a little bit of trolling. I don't know how serious he is about the whole auto pen thing. He got a good meme of it. It got a good news cycle, and it's distracting from a few other things as well. But we cannot deny the fact that Biden really wasn't in that much control. There are a lot of different things going on, a lot of different influences, and you could really see that perceptible decline in his cognitive ability in those final 2 years in office, and particularly in those last 6 months. It wasn't just debate that we saw that. It happened long before, and they tried to hide it from us.
Absolutely.
So with this auto pen thing, yeah, I don't think we can read too much into it. I don't think it'll really go too far. I think it's a bit of trolling. But again, it's just a reminder of just how different these two characters are when you've got the energy levels of Trump and how productive he's been versus Joe Biden during that torrid 2 years he was in the final couple in office.
Yeah, it's a different world, isn't it, with a different president. But speaking of pardons, supporters of Trump, led by podcaster Ben Shapiro, are now fueling a major push to pardon Derek Chauvin, the former Minnesota police officer convicted of killing George Floyd in 2020. Now, of course, we all remember the video of Chauvin kneeling on Floyd's neck for several minutes. That went viral in 2020 and sparked the Black Lives Matter protests, and we all saw how dangerous those turned out. But Shapiro's petition has now surpassed 50,000 signatures. Elon Musk has shared that this was an idea that deserves some thought. It's something to think about. So it is gaining traction, and apparently has it been brought to Donald Trump's attention?
Yeah, this is without doubt one of the most controversial pardons in recent living memory, that's for sure. Trump is obviously no stranger to controversy, so that is obviously no reason for him not to sign it. What we need to remember about this trial of Derek Chauvin was that it happened at one of the most fraught moments in American political history. There was a COVID pandemic where everyone was in lockdown, and then suddenly it burst open with all these BLM protests, and we saw all the violence that happened there too. And then what happened with George Floyd? Now, we know from the toxicology reports that he was under the influence of fentanyl, there was marijuana in his system, and there was also cocaine in his system. Yes, trauma of the impression of the Chauvin's knee on his neck did make a difference, but you cannot say that this would have had the same effect on an otherwise healthy man. So politically, I can't see what Trump will really get out of this. I think it's become an issue that people have tried to move on from, but you're right, it has picked up a lot of momentum among the MAGA right. You've got Elon Musk, you've got Charlie Kirk, and of course, Ben Shapiro. So anything could happen. It remains an open play. Let's see how this one unfolds.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to watch. More than 200 Venezuelans alleged by the White House to be gang members have been deported from the US to a supermax prison in El Salvador, even as a US judge blocked the removals. Now, El Salvador's president confirmed that 238 members of the Venezuelan gang had arrived in the country. Now, the federal judge order prevented the Trump administration to justify some of the deportations, but flights, well, they'd already taken off. And White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt denied that the court ruling had been violated. It's certainly been extraordinary to see this play out. What's your reaction to it, and what's the reaction been in the United States?
Right. I don't think we've ever seen this kind of clash between the executive and the presidency against the courts and the judicial system here. I mean, what happened, just for viewers that aren't aware, is that this executive order was released on Friday afternoon, very discreetly in case it got picked up any press. And then Saturday morning, it somehow leaked, and they got these illegal immigrants on board on the plane and took off. Now, the judge's orders came somewhere over outside of the American territory, so there is some dispute as to whether this was over international waters. But one thing is clear is it's really putting Democrats and critics in a slightly strange position where they're having to defend illegal immigrants and people who had actually committed a crime. Now, my one criticism of Trump here is there needs to be a bit more transparency about who these people are. If they are members of the Venezuelan gang and MS-13 and that kind of thing, then take the public with you, because they're going to be fully supportive of these measures, and it's going to make Democrats look like absolute idiots if they're having to stick around and say, well, actually, what are we doing here? So I think what Trump's doing is he's just trying to, promises made, promises kept, and he's trying to adhere to that. But again, he has to take the public with him, and that's what's important.
Yeah, that's very true. Well, Trump's approval ratings are up. More Americans also say that the country is on the right track, and they say that it's on the right track now than in any other point since 2004. This is according to a new NBC poll. Let's take a look.
The mood of the country. This really jumped out. We asked folks, is it on the right direction or the wrong direction? That 44% you say right direction, that's up since November. And if that doesn't seem like a lot, the last time it cracked 40%, you got to go back to 2012. The last time it actually hit 44 or higher, January of 2004.
It's interesting, James. What do you make of this figure of Trump's approval rating? I thought it was going to, I suppose, dip when there's been so many controversial decisions, but it's pretty high.
And it's also worth noting that that clip is from NBC, which is sort of the liberal outpost for all these kind of things. So if they're admitting to it, that certainly counts for something. I think the key thing is that the fundamentals are looking pretty good for Trump, despite all the noise, as you allude to that. Border crossings, illegal border crossings, are down 96%. There's a feeling that the migrant crisis is passing in a lot of American cities. And he's speaking to Putin on the phone in the next few days. If he can miraculously pull together some kind of agreement between Ukraine and Russia, well, that's another huge tick in his box. So again, a lot of the things are actually looking quite good for him. And just add to that the fact that we have food prices, most notably egg prices, dropping pretty markedly at the moment. So again, all these factors are looking pretty good. Despite all the tariff noise, despite all the market madness, the fundamentals are actually pointing in the right direction, and the public is rewarding him for that.